Ashwoneti for a more chisama or quabado but daily update TV so. And then I will show you medina no subscribe no share. Now auto comment share comment section. Your question can for be the better amount for for how corrupt, how bad, how this a year government is performing. Now a year kufado age mate and kufado age mate. Let's just say or bashi a kufado palm. I say how could this be? Akufo is like father like son. The tunes Akroma. Maybe Akufo come. It didn't know he pick as his own Akufo. This is Akufo age mate. On any boat tipping. Oh, your mamma when you just say, oh yeah, old woman. With him say the two of a drink Akufo. The tip and so and into within a time and as a cat baby picture now. Oh yeah, right. Until Remna is zooming into the video near Kwabuti. Or say God will punish and curse. Yeah, God will punish Akufo. Son of Watcher. Now say me mama kasa no anything said the tea for nyahwefo bi ka no. Me mano aye titi awati awapa na yakwa akwohwe mfoni no na afei so Kelvin Taylor with all due respect what drop a crew of a atu forcing either atu forcing. I say the probability say you be jelly atu forcing is high because we hear history already how Chachuch Gata was jailer. Sansem no next to listen after the video no audio no touch nti me say momre no yen zoom into the video na yen ko share Akufo age man how he is calling here the wrath of God and I say no me or do me Akufo I daily update TV so for comment section share you made in like yen zoom in straight to the video and the audio no for comment share. God bless you, stay tuned.
Is his father like his son? She can't beg it like I say offender Pikum Braco number Tianica Akura Bonnie a tin trotro is a Kurano son at the Papa. Is his father like his son? She can't beg it like I say offender Pikum Braco number Tianica Akura Bonnie a tin trotro is a Kurano son at the Papa. Is his father like his son? She can't beg it like I say offender Pikum Braco number Tianica Akura Bonnie a tin trotro is a Kurano son at the Papa.
And that is what we are seeing today. People are suffocating the laws of this country, bending the rules to favor some individuals. The Constitution of the Republic of Ghana, Akatre, said we all have the rights, to defend ourselves as Ghanaians. And some people are not supposed to take the law into their own hands. Maybe especially people who have been given the opportunity to be in position. Momianko Nianko read exactly what Chachu did. Now, this is the history. And this platform, you know how it is. We try our best to break it down. Today, June 18, marks exactly 16 years since the wrongful June. Na akabe 6 months, right? Na yakotwaba. So all the two ended the same thing. Akabe 6 months. Ni yakotwadi in the NDC or high profile no the asama toneso. I am trying to let you see how the NPP they operate. So I don't have a problem. But I want to show the young ones now, Moshe and Adrino. Hey, Mr. S. And Mr. S, why do you bring this now? I will deal with this later, Mr. S. This one, when I'm in the mood, then I will slot it in, right? All right. Thank you, Mr. S. Which video are you talking about? The beer, they have something to give me. Mr. S. Okay, thank you, Mr. S. Akufo insist here then I buy MPP abai ejina to say yen jeli Chachuchi kata na ka be 6 months na Akufo if you abai mu na omu hia bibi dia campaign se ne be yanka mo betime win campaign no into omu hwehwe ma no say oh Chachu oya wonani yen jeli no tie Inti omkotwe Chachu fi GMPC and omo insist say I was say jeli Chachuchi kata. Inti now momo yen ready the esi yankasa at this point no e Akufo aban ejina so can say they need to jail Chachuchi kata for 5 years and aka 6 months. Na Ekufuado ne Baomi aban no ayden a ende. Right now we are faced with another possible judgment against the NDC because the MPP they want to jail Ato Forsen. Now we read the second paragraph. Now this is what it says. It says this. All right, says on this day in 2008, an Accra High Court found Chachu Chikata guilty of willfully causing financial loss to the state, a conviction that shocked the nation and sent ripples through Ghana's legal and political landscape. Almost see, a year 2008 around June, and a year court, Ghana, a year High Court, a jeli Chachu Chikata say a year Chachu Chikata a cause financial loss to the state. Sata na J.A. Kufuor and a year president. Na J.A. Kufuor na kind of bosumi be in Sia. No, now, so what kind of story now? I'm going to say, on that fateful day, Chikata stood in court without his lawyer, who was absent due to a scheduled interlocutory application. Saturday no mujeli chachu na chachu court sesebia Ato Forsen court debiai na judge in case read the judgment. Na case no krampo no yenkan wiye. Day na chachu court no na ne lawyer mpo nka no ho. Na the lawyer the application for free chira a first case no the same cost premises. In the Chachu Chikata under Kufuor's regime no or court as a regular they say ende Ato Forsen court no. There was no indication because the case had not ended. Nobody had closed their case. The case had not finalized. They were just going to court on a normal day. Now, Chachu Chikata drew court no. What happened was that na the court, the lawyer knew. Na Ura court wano, the call any. Chikata intended to inform the court of his lawyer's absence and seek an adjournment, and so there was no anticipation of a judgment. As two other critical applications were pending at the Court of Appeal and the Supreme Court. In the Chachuko court that day, no, na Chachu lawyers are filing applications mienu. Bako ewo Supreme Court and Bako ewo infa ewo Appeals Court. Sa applications until it is heard, no judge can read a judgment. That is how it works because the applications have been submitted and received by the Appeals Court and the Supreme Court respectfully. At that point, Chachu went to court to tell the judge, say, this is what has happened. That is why my lawyer is not even with me because an application has been filed. My lawyer is following it up. Said, this is what is going on. Because read the judgment. There's no way you can read a judgment without my lawyer. And it has never happened. It never happens. A judge can never read a judgment without the accuser's lawyer there. You cannot just go ahead and say, I'm reading a judgment. That's why there's a notification. Yama obia notice say, ada way, and intina yebebu asema. Judge, or data or dibu asem. Otia asem ni we are now sheda. Or see ada way, obia mra, sada na mebu asem no. That means or package, all the parties should be present on this date. So there's no way a judge can read judgment without all the parties knowing. And also when there is an application pending. No, it never happens. But under J.A. Kufuor buying, it was possible. Mechiramo, the NPP, the way they work. Met my catcher for a fact. Ato Forsen, some are me what to call to you. Probabilities of jail Ato Forsen, it is high. I'm telling you. Ya can't wamano. It is part of the NPP Omankasa party plan. Every time they come to power, they need to use the law against somebody in the NDC. It's a fact. It is something that has been arranged. A party, a party strategy, and yet ended almost started yet. Way back 16 years ago, and almost started Sasam. Now, let's move forward. Notably, the Supreme Court was deliberating on the commercial viability of Valley Farms, the cocoa producing company at the heart of Chikata's charges. In the time of Chikata Crow Court, na one oba normal court no, na Supreme Court no omo da ho application na Chachu edia court to Supreme Court no through the lawyer. So it means the application was being considered by the Supreme Court. If the Supreme Court had thrown out the application in the first place, then you will say you have a case. But that application had been accepted. It has been considered by the Supreme Court. They were contemplating or deliberating on it. So how can a judge go ahead and strike and say, I'm giving judgment today? Abra, when you go to the Supreme Court and the Appeals Court, there are applications pending which is being deliberated upon. NPP, no. They are dangerous people. He was accused of unlawful using the Ghana National Petroleum Corporation, GNPC, to guarantee a loan for Valley Farms while serving as its chief executive officer. Asama Akufo-Addo editor Chachuchikata say, Chachuchikata no ye GNPC boss no. Eye company bia ye friend eye Valley Farms no, or the eye GNPC ena ekodi ejiremu eji loan ema sa company ana farm no. Internet a private company, Valley Farms. And Akufo-Addo say, Chachua or GNPC boss no, or the GNPC sika kwesiya wa say sa farm no enkonkoji some loan bi inti wabo Ghana krono. Aya no kre ana anya no kre. And into a court, and into an krata, any judges, any lawyers, Now, despite the pending applications and the incomplete trial, the High Court, in an unexpected turn of event, convicted and sentenced Chikata to 5 years on each of the 4 counts to be served. Supreme Court find a way to make sure that the Supreme Court will hear the application. No, the 4 charges, the 2 charges, could be also could them 5 years. You can say concurrently. That means that jelly Chikata 5 20 years. But Ningina started pay into over 7 in 5 years. In the Chikata Royal Court, Nana Judge can say she does not care whether his lawyer has filed an application at the Appeals Court or the Supreme Court. She did not even give a date that she was going to give judgment. Because if she had put out a date for judgment, and Chikata's lawyers would be there, and the other party would know, said this is what was going to happen. Even journalists who were covering the story did not even know Chachu was going to be jailed that day. But when they entered the court, and one judge said the 4 the count now, the charges, all the 4 charges were 1 4 in na saa assembly the 2 charges na asem nankasa no kre anansa nya no kre mumenjudwem. Now, when you go for it, it says this. This sudden decision came just days before the Supreme Court was set to rule on the commercial viability of Valley Farms, a ruling that would eventually favor Chikata. In the time na Assembly Court, Chikata lawyers echo file application. Supreme Court say, "Munim bibi, Assembly because we High Court. Sa farms na almost say, Chikata, akodi the GNPC akosia wawa akoji sika ma farms no. Application na Chikata lawyers file court Supreme Court say, farm no na enye sika. GNPC am form sika bi ankosia wawa. Enkrata say sa farm we Valley Farm we omo gina omo na so na omo angasa etumi di omo dwuma no enie. International Supreme Court no na omo in the process of basically saying say ampa omo giatum. Na High Court judge no ho na oye dwuma makofo no na omo nim say because the Supreme Court that time na ye legitimate Supreme Court no. That Supreme Court then there were Supreme Court that you could not enter and do business. In 2008, the Supreme Court we had were noble men and women who were basically looking at the issues before they pronounced judgment. But because the Attorney General then who served under Kufuor and J.A. Kufuor himself who had diabolic mind, they used the High Court judge to, at the end of the day, call judgment. Abrana Supreme Court was about to call the case and say no. South Valley Farms they actually have money. They are operating in the Sobi Kase Chikata and the GNPC Sika Kusia or because they know say Supreme Court case in this one definitely that Supreme Court, no, 2008, the no America, and then the that 2008 Supreme Court, no, they were going to say, from the document before them, no, in fact, Chachu Chikata was not guilty or near bonnet. But the moment Supreme Court, the High Court judge cannot jail Chachu. And it was in the same week and Supreme Court etnasi. And the news said the Supreme Court was going to say Chachu Chikata was not guilty because the valley, the farms for no, Chachu did not basically use a GMPCCK to guarantee for them. Into what the NPP government then did was to go ahead of the Supreme Court. That is why, even though there was an application at the appeals court and the Supreme Court, the High Court bypassed all these powers because the president then, J. Ekufuor, had instructed the Attorney General and the judge then to call judgment that day. It's not a planned from the government. What you say? Now, young queen in the facts, no. And this is the same thing they are doing today. Yeah, we are about Atto force in case, So this case, Ekufuor and a static case, Tie. Nana Addo Ekufuor and a static case way. A one Ekufuor obe exposing who control. The first time they entered Koroka say the Chachu Chikata against J. Ekufuor, a whole Attorney General. When he was filing his case, that is how he filed the case. And a judge Nikache Ekufuor say you are dumb. This is the Chachu Chikata against the states, against Ghana. It is not a fight between Chachu and Kufuor. So the judge in court told Ekufuor to say, hey, you are dumb. You are not a lawyer, eh? How did you become an Attorney General? Go back.
Abuswami Mwakwabasa about Daily Update TV. So, and then I will share you media no now subscribe to my YouTube channel, like and share for comment section. You better be na ya kind. So say a year intro no ya man short outro no na ya conversation segment. A year Chachu Chikata, any name say Chachu Chikata echo jail. A year ko 4 time or Mampany ko 4 time. And a Chachu Chikata echo jail. Now, I was about a year mix me as a judgment and almost pass a wrong judgment and almost pass the jail a year Chachu Chikata busia. It's no measure say a year into all the crew no I drop say or out of force in case now. It means a judge now TSM so your man a year taxi be and I say ya cash in be at 20 say on jail a year out of forcing because also official sad time a jail a year Chachu Chikata na kofo e be free abem similar to this government because this case have been there for long. I wa check and a case na wa check ni na no o man discuss case no and I say o man ka case no official sad time akufo do e be free abem and o many abra omugu asem so omuka ni gidi. That is the crew say probability of say they will jail at forcing is very high. According to Kelvin, tell her with all due respect, all the drop stars as this way. Yes, I'm farmer so much for natural food. Now, Miss Momreno for a comment to show honum into at forcing trial case and ambulance case. No, Ninani say yes, at forcing across all financial loss to the state because at force was then deputy finance minister to say Tepe and it was a ambulance procurement issues be and almost say at forcing. And sign and as I was signed and as a ambulance don't import to buy no and yeah papa like a whole lot of allegations na more raising against at forcing the minority leader of NDC caucus in parliament. Into when in Sambia a giant sakai into now so a daily update so tembiano show and I say you create content at the so much for any for say be and I'll show you no and as what I share unsubscribe here need a kwaso yeah so best subscribe my YouTube channel no now or like you know share now or commenting and so I then I share comment section on my yeah better brain and I can or drink no I'm for native for United because bless you.